They say history is written by the victors, but what if some parts of it are deliberately kept from all of us? That thought haunted me as I stood before the Giza pyramids, staring up at their impossible geometry. You can feel it. Something doesn't add up. These aren't just ancient tombs, they're statements, monuments to a truth we've barely scratched. But here's the thing, you're not allowed to scratch any deeper. And that's where the real story begins. I tried asking questions, simple ones at first. Why can't researchers just go inside every part of the pyramid? Why are certain chambers off limits, sealed off, guarded like national secrets? The answers I got were rehearsed, vague, dismissive. Preservation, tourist safety. But is that all it is? Or are there things inside that might shake our understanding of history? It hit me hardest when I heard about the shafts. Those narrow, angular tunnels that run deep inside the Great Pyramid. Some of them don't go anywhere. Others stop suddenly at sealed doors. In 1993, a tiny robot was sent into one of them. It found a stone slab with copper handles. No one knew what was behind it. Then, almost a decade later, another robot went in, drilled a hole, and found yet another door. And what was beyond that? We still don't really know. You'd think the world would be watching that live on TV. You'd think it would be front-page news. But it wasn't. The coverage was limited, the findings summarized and vague. The project was suddenly shut down. Questions were left unanswered. And the media moved on, as if none of it ever mattered. That's when I realized this isn't just about archaeology. It's about control. There's something unsettling about the idea that we, in 2025, with all our technology and global connectivity, still don't have access to a full exploration of the world's most iconic monument. We can send satellites to Mars, but we can't open a stone slab in a 400-500-year-old pyramid. That's not science, that's a system. A system built to protect certain narratives and silence others. I started digging into who controls the site. The Egyptian authorities, of course, are fiercely protective. But even when international teams come in, they're tightly monitored. Every step we scan, every experiment has to be approved. Nothing happens without oversight. But who benefits from this secrecy? Who gets to decide what version of history the world is allowed to see? And then there's the timing. Every time a new discovery is made, whether it's thermal anomalies in the pyramid walls or large unexplained voids detected by Moon scans, it gets announced with excitement and then disappears. No follow-up, no deep investigation, no access granted for further exploration. It's like dangling a thread and then yanking it away the moment people get curious. I can't help but think about the implications. What if something was discovered that didn't align with what we've always been told? What if there was evidence of an older civilization or lost knowledge that predates Egypt itself? That would change everything. Religion, science, education, power structures. It wouldn't just be an archaeological revelation. It would be a cultural upheaval. And maybe that's exactly why we're kept out. I spoke to people who've tried to gain access. Researchers, historians, even engineers. Many of them hit brick walls, not just literally, but politically. Permits denied. Emails unanswered, tours redirected, some even received warnings to drop it. Think about that in a world that claims to value truth, transparency, and discovery. We're being told not to ask questions about a pile of stone blocks in the desert. Why? Some will say it's all conspiracy, that I'm reading too much into bureaucracy and red tape. Maybe. But even if that's true, what's the harm in asking to know more? Why should we be content with surface-level answers? If there's nothing to hide, then why are we not allowed to look? It reminds me of how power works. The most dangerous truths are the ones hidden in plain sight, wrapped in myth, guarded by tradition, and protected by systems that claim to be working for us. But truth doesn't need guards. It doesn't fear being questioned. It doesn't need sealed doors and excuses. Standing there at Giza, with the desert wind rushing past, I realized something even more chilling. It's not just the pyramid that's sealed off. It's our access to the past. The deeper you try to go, the faster the world pushes you back. Not because there's nothing there, but maybe because there's too much. We've been told the pyramids are solved, that they're tombs, that the mystery is gone. But that's a lie. The mystery isn't solved, it's suppressed. Buried not under sand, but under politics, pride, and fear. And until we start demanding access, not just to the monuments, but to the truth, we'll remain in the dark, staring up at ancient stone, wondering what secrets lie just behind the door we're not allowed to open. I used to believe the experts. I mean, who wouldn't? They have the degrees, the credentials, the museums, The documentaries. When they said the pyramids were tombs built for pharaohs, I nodded. When they explained how copper tools and manpower built monuments that have outlasted empires, I accepted it. But something started bothering me. The more I listened, the more questions I had, and the more I dug, the more I realized not everyone agrees with the official story. In fact, a growing number of people believe we've been missiled, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. There's a strange comfort in authority. Experts give us neat answers. They box history into chapters, names, and dates, but history isn't always neat. The pyramids, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, are anything but simple. The precision scale, the alignment with celestial bodies, the unexplained interior chambers, these aren't just impressive, they're baffling. Even with today's technology, replicating what the Egyptians supposedly built 500 years ago would be a challenge. But here's the kicker, there's no blueprint, no definitive proof of how they did it. Just theories, just assumptions. And then I stumbled across the other side, the so-called conspiracy theorists, the fringe voices dismissed by academia. At first I rolled my eyes. Aliens, lost civilizations, ancient advanced tech, it all sounded like bad sci-fi. But then I actually listened, I read the research, I watched the simulations. And slowly, something shifted. Not everything they said was wild. In fact, a lot of it made sense, especially when compared to the vagueness of the mainstream narrative. Take the construction itself. The Great Pyramid is made up over 2 million limestone blocks, some weighing more than 70 tons. We're told slaves dragged them across the desert on sledges, up ramps in perfect alignment. But where are the ramps? Why haven't we found evidence of such massive construction infrastructure? And why do modern engineers and architects say it's nearly impossible, even with today's cranes and GPS? Then there's the mathematical precision. The pyramid isn't just a pile of rocks. It's a structure encoded with constants, pi, the golden ratio, even the speed of light, if you believe the coordinates link up. How would primitive people know any of that? Were they just accidentally accurate? Or did they know more than we give them credit for? And if they did, where did that knowledge come from? The experts will say it's coincidence, that ancient people were smarter than we think, that we underestimate their ingenuity. And maybe that's partly true. But when you look at cultures all over the world, from South America to Mesopotamia to Southeast Asia, you find similar patterns, impossible architecture, celestial alignments, myths of gods descending from the sky, and sudden bursts of knowledge that disappear without explanation. It doesn't add up. One theory that keeps coming up is that these ancient civilizations had help. Not necessarily aliens, but maybe a forgotten advanced civilization, wiped out by cataclysm, buried under time. Some call it Atlantis, others call it lost history. But whatever name you give it, the core idea is the official timeline is wrong. So why do the experts resist this so strongly? Why do they dismiss any alternative view as nonsense, pseudoscience, or even dangerous? Maybe it's pride. Academia is built on reputation, not on rewriting everything. Or maybe it's deeper than that. And maybe accepting one piece of lost history means unraveling everything we thought we knew, religion, politics, even our place in the universe. What strikes me most is how defensive the gatekeepers are. Try bringing up these ideas in a university setting, and you'll get laughed out of the room. Mention Graham Hank, Robert Bivell, or Randall Carlson, and you're immediately labeled a conspiracy theorist. But why? Why does asking questions make you a threat? That's when I realized this isn't just about history. It's about power. Whoever controls the past controls the narrative. If we suddenly discovered that the pyramids weren't built by the Egyptians, that they're thousands of years older than we know, that they carry knowledge we've forgotten, who benefits from keeping that quiet? And who loses control if the truth gets out? Now, I'm not saying every theory out there is true. Some of them are wild, but it's dangerous to ignore the questions just because they challenge the status quo. Real science invites curiosity. It doesn't shut down ideas with ridicule. And when the mainstream refuses to explore certain paths, those paths become more interesting to me. Not less. What if we've been wrong? What if history isn't what we think it is? What if beneath the sands of Egypt and beneath the stone of Giza lies a message from a civilization we've forgotten or deliberately erased? We may never know until we start asking the hard questions and stop pretending the experts have all the answers. So no, I don't blindly trust the official story anymore. Not because I want to believe in conspiracies, but because the truth deserves more than silence, more than censorship, more than smug certainty. It deserves open eyes, open minds, and people brave enough to dig deeper. even if the experts say we're wasting our time. You'd think in a world where we can land rovers on Mars and scan the ocean floor, we'd be able to fully explore something right here on Earth, something that's been standing in the open for thousands of years. But we can't, not when it comes to the Great Pyramid of Giza. You can't just drill into it. You can't explore every passage. You can't scan or dig or even ask too many questions without hitting a wall, not a literal one, but a bureaucratic, political, and sometimes even ideological wall. And that raises one massive question: why? I used to believe the narrative was simple: preservation. Protect the site, maintain the legacy, prevent damage. That's what we're told. But the more I looked into it, the more I realized that this is about more than just protection. It's about control. Control over access, control over information, and ultimately control over truth. Let me paint you a picture. In 2017, scientists used cosmic ray moon scanning to peer inside the Great Pyramid. What they found stunned the world: a massive void, an empty space the size of a commercial airplane, hidden deep inside the structure, completely unknown until then. No one knew why it was there or what it contained, and yet almost instantly the conversation ended. No follow-up exploration, no further scans. The media went quiet, and the void still unexplored to this day. Why? We had the tech, we had the curiosity. What we didn't have was permission. That's the pattern. Time and time again, whenever something strange or unexplainable is discovered in Giza, things get locked down. In 1993, a robotic probe was sent into a mysterious shaft inside the pyramid. It found a sealed door with copper handles. The world waited for answers. But instead of a discovery, we got silence. For years, when another probe was finally sent in, it drilled a hole and found another sealed door. And since then, no entry, no permission to go further. And if you try to ask why, you're told it's about respecting heritage. But ask anyone who's tried to get inside. Independent researchers, foreign archaeologists, even documentary filmmakers, and they'll tell you it's not just hard, it's nearly impossible. The red tape is unreal. The approval process is long, political, and often ends in a quiet no. And if you push too hard, you're labeled disrespectful, unscientific, or worse, dangerous. That word, dangerous, it keeps coming up, as if drilling a small hole into an ancient wall is somehow a threat. But what's really being threatened? The stone, or the story? The official version of events is tiding. The pyramids were built around 500 BC as tombs for the pharaohs. They were constructed by skilled laborers, not slaves, over decades. That's what's taught in schools. That's what's repeated in museums. But the truth is, nobody actually knows how they were built. Not with that precision, not on that scale. The more you study it, the more you realize how many assumptions are baked into the facts. And that's why exploration, real exploration, is such a threat. Because if we drill into the wrong chamber and something that doesn't fit the timeline, the entire historical foundation begins to crack. What if that void isn't empty? What if those sealed shafts aren't symbolic but functional, leading to something significant? What if inside the Great Pyramid is evidence of knowledge that predates Egypt itself, evidence of a lost civilization, of ancient technology, or even records of human history we've never seen? That would be earth-shattering. It would challenge everything: religion, science, education, politics. And maybe that's why we're not allowed in. Because let's be honest, exploration isn't impossible. We have non-invasive tools, ground-penetrating radar, drones, micro-drills. We're not asking to blow holes in a monument. We're asking to carefully, respectfully, and intelligently study one of humanity's greatest mysteries. But those in power don't want that. They want control over the narrative, not chaos. And truth, real, raw, unfiltered truth, is chaos to institutions built on certainty. Every time new evidence surfaces that might challenge the accepted story, it gets brushed aside, delayed, or buried. We hear words like, "we're looking into it," or "more research is needed," but the research never comes. And when it does, it's tightly controlled by the same institutions that have the most to lose. I'm not saying we should go in with hammers and drills and tear the place apart, but we deserve access. We deserve answers. The pyramid doesn't belong to a committee. It belongs to history, to the people. And sealing it off, physically and intellectually, only deepens the mystery and fuels the suspicion. What's behind those walls? Why are we not allowed to know? That's the question I keep coming back to. It's not about holes in stone. It's about holes in the story, until we're allowed to explore freely. Responsibly, yes, but freely. We'll remain in the dark, wondering what lies just out of reach, wondering if the truth has already been found and hidden. It's strange, isn't it? The moment someone claims to have found something incredible inside the Great Pyramid, some new chamber, an unexplained void, or an anomaly in the stone, you hear about it for a day, maybe two, and then silence. Total silence, no follow-up, no deep dives, no global countdown to the next big discovery. And that's what gets me, because we're not talking about a minor archaeological footnote here. We're talking about the most iconic structure on Earth, the last standing wonder of the ancient world. If there's something new inside it, why isn't the entire world watching? I remember when they announced the discovery of that massive void inside the Great Pyramid. Scientists used cosmic rays, MONs, to scan the internal structure without damaging it. The results were undeniable. There was a large, unexplained space hidden inside the monument. The news hit headlines briefly, and then it disappeared. It was like someone whispered, "Hey, we may have just found a room no one's seen in 400-500 years," and the world collectively shrugged. That moment haunted me, because curiosity is supposed to be one of humanity's defining traits. We send billion-dollar missions to space, we create documentaries about lost ships and sunken cities, we chase every little artifact found in Europe or the Amazon. But when it comes to the pyramids, when something genuinely mysterious happens, suddenly nobody wants to talk about it. That's not normal, that's suspicious. It's like there's this unspoken agreement among major institutions and media outlets. Don't poke the pyramid too hard. Don't go too deep. Report it quickly, then move on. And maybe the average person doesn't notice, but I did. And once you notice the silence, you can't unhear it. It's deafening. I started asking why. Why isn't this the biggest story in archaeology? Why aren't universities organizing global panels to debate the implications? Why isn't National Geographic setting up 24/7 live cams? The usual excuse is that more data is needed, that it's too early to say anything. But they've been saying that for years. And that same caution doesn't seem to apply to other discoveries. A broken clay pot in the desert gets front page treatment, but a mysterious chamber inside the Great Pyramid, that's brushed aside like it's nothing. And that's when I realized something deeply uncomfortable. Maybe the silence is intentional. Maybe the institutions that shape public perception, the networks, the academic bodies, the museums, don't actually want us to look too closely. Because if we do, we might find something that doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, we'll start asking questions, dangerous questions, questions that don't have neat answers. What if that chamber has something inside it? What if it contains objects, inscriptions, or knowledge that challenges everything we thought we knew? That kind of truth doesn't just shake the academic world. It shakes religious history, government narratives, even the core idea of how human civilization began. That kind of truth is messy. It's controversial. And it's very, very hard to control. So instead of risking all that, they go silent, they let the story fade, they bury it under newer, safer headlines. It's a tactic as old as time. When you can't disprove something, just ignore it. Let it rot in the shadows. But here's the twist. They forgot one thing: the world is still watching. Maybe not the media, maybe not the scholars in marble halls, but regular people like you and me were paying attention. We talk in forums, we watch every leaked video, we share every grainy photo, and we ask the questions they won't. Why did the muon scan results suddenly go quiet after revealing that void? Why were follow-up missions delayed or denied? Why are international teams routinely blocked from fully exploring the site? Why are independent researchers called conspiracy theorists for simply wanting to drill a tiny hole through a wall? That's what this is really about. Curiosity. The global kind. The kind that doesn't die just because a headline disappears. We want to know what's in those chambers. We want to know if history has been edited. We want to know if the truth has been buried, literally. The pyramid doesn't belong to one country or one institution. It's not a piece of private property. It's part of human heritage. Every culture on Earth should have a stake in uncovering what's hidden inside. And every time a journalist looks the other way, every time a government shuts down a dig, every time a discovery gets retracted or forgotten, it sends a message: you're not supposed to know. But I'm not buying that anymore, and neither should you. Because the silence isn't a sign that there's nothing there. It's the opposite. Silence, when paired with mystery, is a signal, a flare in the sky telling us that we're getting close to something that matters. We're not asking for destruction. We're not demanding bulldozers or reckless digging. We're asking for truth, carefully, respectfully, but fearlessly. We want to see what's behind the walls. We want to know what's been hidden, not for years, but for millennia. So keep asking, keep watching, Because the truth about the pyramids isn't gone, it's just quiet. For now.